All right, everyone, welcome back to the Mark You Down for a Cup of Joe podcast. I'm Mark,
I'm Joe.
and today we're going to be talking about NFL Week 1, little NFL action. Football's back. We're going to be talking about some things that we noticed in the NFL Week 1. We're not going to break down every single game. We're just going to break down some of the bigger things or more important things that we can talk about. So we each have three different things that stood out to us in this NFL Week 1. So we're going to just get right into it, have a little conversation about them. So, Joe, what is your first biggest takeaway from NFL Week 1?
The biggest thing that stood out to me, and that's why it's number one, was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this past offseason, they lost two big parts of that offense in Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. With the confidence that they'd be able to replace or get near to that production which they gave them. They thought Juju Smith would be able to step up and be a number one receiver. They thought they'd be able to replace Le'Veon Bell and James Conner. But after watching them against the Patriots, and to be fair, it was against the Patriots, arguably the best team in the NFL right now, they just did not look good at all. The offense had no rhythm. They weren't able to throw the ball all that well. They never got any sort of run game going. Juju Smith, I don't think, stepped up and became that number one receiver like you were hoping he'd become. Stephen Gilmore had him shut down for most of the game. And Big Ben did not look very good as well. He wasn't throwing the ball down the field a whole lot. He wasn't using that big arm, which he has. He was checking down a whole lot. The defense got lit up for 30 points, and quite honestly, if the Patriots really wanted to, I think they could have easily gone and scored a lot more had they been more aggressive. I think a lot of it was game flow. They were just calling plays. They kept moving the ball, but they really weren't taking any shots down the field because they had no need to at that point. They didn't need to risk anything. So the defense got picked apart a little bit. They never really even got near to Tom Brady. So, that's my biggest NFL. That's my biggest takeaway from week one of NFL football is the Pittsburgh Steelers are not looking as good as everyone predicted, as everyone was hoping. They look to be in some trouble right now.
Yeah. And I'm one of those guys who picked the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you watched our AFC predictions episode, I actually predicted the Steelers to win that division. So, my pick isn't looking so good now. A lot of the things you mentioned, I think, hold true. Juju not really being that number one in that game, and then James Conner really not doing much on the ground. But I think a lot of onus here falls on Big Ben. I mean, he is the veteran of this team, and he's the quarterback. As he goes, the team goes. And he wasn't throwing with a lot of rhythm. He looked lost. He almost looked like a rookie out there. Like there was nothing really positive you could take from this game. So if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I would be extremely worried if I were you right now. And like the almost the underlying thing is, can Big Ben get it done anymore? As age finally caught up to him, like can he really carry a team? I don't know anymore. So he might fall out of that top five, top 10 conversation, and Pittsburgh might have to be looking at life without Big Ben relatively quickly if he keeps this up. So I think that was a good storyline to touch upon. Is there anything else you want to add with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or does that pretty much cover it?
I think that covers all of the takeaways I had for them this past week.
All right, perfect. Well, so my first takeaway, or one of my takeaways, is the second year quarterback struggles. As you know, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen are all drafted in the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft. And the only quarterback I'm not going to put in this list right here is Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he had a fantastic game, but yeah. So Lamar Jackson, I'm excluding out of this list for obvious reasons. Had a great game. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Allen were guys that were all drafted before Lamar in the first round, and they all did not look good. Josh Allen, 4 turnovers. Sam Darnold never could really get the offense in any sort of rhythm against the Bills. And then Baker Mayfield, that was probably the biggest disaster from the number one pick that we could have seen. So The second year quarterbacks not really looking too hot. And the interesting thing is, it's really funny because they said that was going to be a good quarterback draft, a really good one. And the last time they said that there wasn't a good quarterback draft, we got Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes out of it. So I think the jury's still out on these young guys. And yeah, we have to just wait and see. But I don't think it's really looking good for those three guys right now.
No, I don't think it's looking good for both. All three of them got off to a really bad start. I was never really sold on Josh Allen coming out of college. He was coming from a little bit of a smaller school. Didn't see a lot of big time schools. He wasn't going up against any of those Pac-12 SEC schools, some of those schools that produces NFL talent year in and year out. Baker Mayfield, kind of the same thing. I never really liked him coming out of Oklahoma. I didn't know how NFL ready he was going to be. Sam Darnold, I didn't get to see a whole bunch of him. I left right when he was starting to blow up. But from what I've seen from him this past week in the NFL, it looks like he's going through some struggles right now. To be fair, I do want to defend Baker Mayfield just a little bit here in this situation. He did look bad. He did throw 3 interceptions, but his line play was just absolutely awful. He was not getting any time to throw, to get time to set his feet, to really make any decisions. So I think that's may have played a factor into why he had 3 interceptions, which I'm not going to use as a green card to wave away all of that, because there's lots of good quarterbacks that can still make those throws under pressures. But like you were saying, not a whole lot coming from this group of second-year quarterbacks. The second year is the year where these guys tend to make the leap, where they begin to live up to their potential. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at a guy like Derek Carr. Way back when, his second year, he took off a little bit. And I just didn't see it with a lot of those guys, except Lamar Jackson, like you said. But I'm curious to see what he does against a more, to be quite blunt, a team that isn't tanking, a team that is actually out there playing football.
That is a very fair point. But yeah, nothing else to add. Lamar Jackson looks great right now, but we shall see how he does continuing going forward. But Joseph, what is your second biggest takeaway of the NFL kickoff week?
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the New Orleans Saints and the Houston Texans game yesterday. And right before week 1, the Houston Texans got bold and they made some moves. They shipped off Jadeveon Clowney. They traded for Laramie Tunsil and for one other receiver. His name's slipping my mind right now.
Kenny Stills?
Yes, Kenny Stills, thank you. And watching them against the New Orleans Saints has me a little bit concerned about some of those decisions to trade away Jadeveon Clowney and trade for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills. The defense still played all right, but it seemed like it was missing a presence out there. I think having Jadeveon Clowney really could have helped that pass rush a whole lot. JJ was getting double, triple teamed. He was still he was still disrupting plays like he normally does, but it's hard to consistently do that when you have 3 guys blocking you on every play. Laramie Tunsil, as I watched the game, it looked like he was doing okay. But then I saw him give up some sacks towards the end of the game. The whole offensive line struggled with that, and it led to Deshaun Watson getting hit a couple of times, and I know there were a couple of times where he got up really slow. So, I'm starting to wonder how effective these moves Houston made are actually going to be for this team. I think we have a problem in Houston. I think
nice callback there.
I think this may have been some last minute moves to try and beef up the team. Maybe just grabbing some of those guys that have some of the bigger names and hoping they would fit right into their system, and I don't think they've done that.
Yeah. Remember when we recorded our Houston We Have a Problem podcast, and I was like, hey, does this have potential to blow up in their face? You're like, no, not so much. I'm thinking this is why I thought it could be a problem because Laramie Tunsil definitely does help, but that offensive line is just atrocious. And, even with the addition of Laramie Tunsil, it's not good. Deshaun Watson still absorbed, I think, 6 sacks. So, and the problem is this is as good as Houston's going to get. Houston does indeed have a problem without their next 2 first-round picks. Like, I know they drafted a tackle this year in the first round, but how are you going to get some of those offensive linemen to protect Deshaun Watson? And my biggest takeaway, I guess, with this is Deshaun Watson is an absolute stud. Love the kid, love the quarterback. But I think the Houston Texans are wasting Deshaun Watson's prime. Because if you're not going to be able to protect him, you might see something, where a quarterback keeps getting hit repeatedly, and it might shorten his career. And, he might not be as effective. They really need to fix that. And I don't know what avenues they can go through to fix that right now. But they can't do this. They can't put Deshaun Watson out there in harm's way. And I know they've tried to address it, but I mean, this is where you would have to go in the offseason and, like the Raiders did, pay for Trent Brown, get some of those more proven guys who've been able to do it. And they haven't done that. They've tried to address it with Laramie Tunsil and a rookie. So, yeah, that's...
It brings back a line from The Blind Side, that great Hollywood movie. And I don't know if I'm going to quote this exactly right, but towards the beginning of the movie, it's talking about how important the left tackle is. And it talks about how there's no good quarterback without a good left tackle up in front of him. And, you think of the Patriots back in the day with Sebastian Vollmer, Big Ben with, Andre
Villanueva?
Yes, Villanueva, thank you. I was going to say Villanueva, but that didn't sound right. You got Aaron Rodgers and David Bakhtiari, Dak Prescott and Tyron Smith. And, you got Deshaun Watson out there with Laramie Tunsil, who is a top-notch player, but is he up there in that elite category? Is he a top 5 left tackle? And right now, after seeing that, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, I will give him credit. It is a new system. He's only been there for about a week, so that may have been part of the reason for his struggles. So I want to give him a few more weeks. I want to give some of these moves a few more weeks and see them get more integrated into that system and see what happens.
Yeah, we shall see. And another point, to be fair, I think New Orleans has a really good defensive line as well. But, moving on later into the year, you're going to be playing teams with really good defensive lines, especially in the playoffs if you want to make a run, because this is where that team's at, and it could be a problem later on. But anyways, I'm going to move on to my second biggest takeaway. And my second biggest takeaway is the AFC North is now the Ravens division to lose. After 1 week, I am confident enough to say that. Simply because Lamar Jackson is playing really well. It looks like he's taken that next step. And that was my biggest question. And hey, he answered it. And he looks like one of those franchise quarterbacks that you want, athletic. He's throwing with touch and accuracy. The other thing is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're not going to be good this year, just from that one game I saw. And I know this might be a little bit of an overreaction on both ends, but I do think that that this has a little bit more staying power than most things. I do think Lamar Jackson actually is a better passer. He's throwing the ball way better, and Pittsburgh is missing those weapons. I'm the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they'll be fine in the long run, but you've shown
they're not the Super Bowl contenders that people were portraying them to be.
No, they're not. And Baker showed a lot of weakness that I hadn't really seen last year. I mean, yeah, he might have thrown picks last year, but he just kind of looked constantly under duress, and he didn't look like he was able to handle it. In Cincinnati, Andy Dalton actually had a really good game, but just don't trust the Bengals yet. So the AFC North is the Ravens division to lose.
I completely agree with that. I don't have much to add there. We talked about Pittsburgh earlier. I didn't like what I saw from the Browns. I thought they were a little overhyped coming into this season. They added a couple of big name players, but overall, I look at that roster. I don't think it's a Super Bowl winning roster just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cincinnati Bengals, well, they've just let us down time and time again, and I don't think they have as good of a roster as they've had in years past when they were legitimate playoff contenders. So Baltimore Ravens, the ball is in. This is your division right now.
Ball's in your court, and keep up this play, and you guys could make a run in the postseason. But anyways, Joseph, what is your second big point, big takeaway.
We're going to go back to quarterbacks, and we're going to go talk about another uh, young quarterback in the NFL, and that's Dak Prescott. Before I was not a big Dak Prescott fan. I thought he was a good quarterback, but I was of the opinion that it was more so because of Ezekiel Elliott's success running the ball, great offensive line, weapons to throw to. And he comes out week 1 and he has a absolute killer game. And I'm gonna start believing in Dak a little bit more. He really did impress me. He really did change my mind a little bit. Throwing for 400 yards, throwing for 4 or 5 touchdowns, however many it was. I think it was 4.
It was 4, yeah.
That's no easy thing to do. Him and Kellen Moore seem to be doing a really, really good job, especially Kellen Moore. They were throwing the ball a lot more, getting a lot more play actions. Dak was putting the ball where it needed to be. He made some really, really nice throws against the Giants. And I think he could take that next step, and I think we could start seeing Dak Prescott lead this offense this year instead of Ezekiel Elliott in the rushing game leading this offense, which I think could actually make the Dallas Cowboys legitimate contenders this year, as much as I don't like to say it, me not being the biggest Dallas fan out there. Mm-hmm. But if Dak Prescott can play like this week in and week out, I think we're going to have a fun time watching the NFC.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you, and my biggest takeaway is kind of like the tail end of your point, is that it looks like Dak Prescott can carry this team without Ezekiel Elliott, because it seems like the Cowboys in the past few years, if Ezekiel Elliott wasn't going, the offense wasn't going. Well, Zeke is still getting back into game shape, and Dak was throwing it all over the lot. And granted, he does have a very good team around him, but this is what good teams do, and this is what good quarterbacks do. They beat bad teams, and they beat them handily. You know, I mean, maybe not necessarily the scoreboard all the time reflects that, but it never felt like Dallas was out of control of this game. You know, so that's kind of my biggest takeaway. And if that's the case, Dak is about to get a massive payday and reset this quarterback market. That's the other thing that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and another thing that I'd like to point out is just Dak spread the ball around a whole lot this game against the Giants. He wasn't really favoring one guy over the other. He wasn't, only throwing the ball to
Amari.
Yes, Amari Cooper. He wasn't only throwing the ball to Randall Cobb, Jason Witten,
Michael Gallup.
There were, let me count this out. I have the stats pulled up. There were 7 different guys who caught passes against the Giants. And a lot of them were, 3, 4, 5 receptions. So Dak was spreading the ball around a little bit. I think that shows that he's reading defenses. He's throwing to the open man. He's looking for the open man. So I think Dak Prescott has taken a little bit of a jump this year.
Yeah, a little bit of a jump is a lot of positive for the Cowboys. Now I'm going to go with my last one, and I've been debating what I should do for this last one. But you know what? I'm going to go with it. The Raiders are a functional organization.
Raiders!
The Raiders are going to be a great organization moving forward in the upcoming years, and I have no doubt about that, simply because look how they were able to handle this he who shall not be named situation. This guy was never present at training camp. It was drama literally every day up until his release. And this team was able to stay focused, get locked and loaded, and just handle their business on Monday night. And when you look at this team, the reason I wanted to go with this is because there's a lot of people in media. If you watch media, there's one prominent figurehead, I will say. Not going to name his name, but his name rhymes with Smallin Now Bird. And he says that the Raiders are a dysfunctional organization, that they're just a dumpster fire. And you know what? He's saying that this guy, he who shall not be named, was embarrassing the organization. It shows that they didn't have a handle on it. Well, guess what? They do. Mike Mayock and John Gruden know exactly what they're doing. Mayock knows how to pick talent. It was on display on Monday. John Gruden knows how to coach and win football games. That was on display Monday. And the Raiders are back, and I'm really excited to see Derek Carr. I mean, he was able to just have an excellent game, only playing 6 preseason snaps. I expect him to get better, and Yeah, the Raiders, I think, are going to be here to stay in the near future. So, Vegas, get ready. You're going to have a good team on your hands.
This is a team coming into this week that I thought was underrated. Um, when I saw the matchup against the Broncos and that the Broncos were favored, that actually surprised me because looking at the Broncos team, um, they just don't impress me. They're just one of those teams that is, I'd say, just right below mediocre, where you're looking at like 6 wins and that's about it. That's about all you're gonna get from them. They don't have anything really going for them right now. They have old washed up quarterback playing for them. They're trying to ride a defense which isn't going to live up to the 2015 Super Bowl run, and nothing really budding for them right there. Well, with the Raiders, you have Derek Carr, a young quarterback who's been in the system for a few years now. He's got some weapons. He has Tyrell Williams, which I'm really excited for. They got a young running back, Josh Jacobs, if I'm not mistaken, coming from Alabama, and young front office, brand new coaching staff. Well, not brand new, but a coaching staff that is settled in for a year. They've had some time to get used to everything, implement the system, get the guys that they want. So I really liked from what I saw from them. Derek Carr looked really sharp this past game. He was darting the ball in there. The stats may not support it, but he looked really, really good.
Yeah.
So them Raiders, the
Raiders are back. And one more point, just with this whole alphabet guy scenario. The Raiders of yesteryear, I hope you guys understand, any little setback would mean, a 15-point blowout on the football field. This team was able to rally, and I think that fact is being extremely underrated right now. And Derek Carr was able to complete, a high percentage of passes on a defense with phenomenal pass rushers, with 6 preseason snaps. I mean, like that's just insane when you're talking about like being in football shape. He's not necessarily like there up to game speed. I think he's only going to get better too. So the Raiders, a lot to like, a lot to be excited about. But Joseph,
22 of 26.
Yep, 22 of 26, a rating of 130 thereabouts.
121.
121. Okay, but only one touchdown, like you said. The stats don't necessarily reflect it in terms of gaudy numbers, but he was extremely effective on the field, and the Raiders always looked in control of that game. But anyways, Joseph, what is your last NFL takeaway from Week 1?
My last takeaway for NFL Week 1? I think we covered all of my takeaways, I'm just really, I think one of the other takeaways that I had coming into this year is, I think some of these divisions, I think some of these top teams, the Steelers, the Chiefs, who else? The Eagles, the Falcons, the Saints, the Rams. I think some of those teams, I think they're in a little bit of trouble right now with what we saw from some of these underdog teams, we'll call them. I think some of these guys that I think were penciled in to make the playoffs, penciled in to make the Super Bowl, penciled in to make the, win the division and all that. I don't think we're going to have that this year. I think we're going to have lots of underdogs come up out of the blue, like the Baltimore Ravens, like we were just talking about, and really kind of shock the league a little bit. So I think this is going to be a little bit of an unpredictable NFL season. I think this is going to be a really fun one to watch.
Yeah, I agree too. And I kind of get that sense too, looking around the league. It's, I think the talent's a lot tighter than any, years past that it has been. And, like kind of going along with that, there's a lot of older quarterbacks as well that like Big Ben, Brady, Breeze, even Rodgers, these guys who have been pillars for the NFL for years and years and years. I mean, they're definitely getting closer to the end of their careers, and some of these young bucks are coming up and showing what they can do, and that they can lead this league forward without the older guys. So there's going to be a lot of changing of the guard, a lot of excitement, but more importantly, a lot of parity, and that's why we love football. That's why we love the NFL. So anything else you want to add?
I think we covered everything.
All right, perfect. Well, super excited about week 2. Look for our Pick'em episode, which should drop shortly as well. So please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Again, this has been Mark.
This is Joe.
And we are signing off.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.